St James's Park under lights, the Toon Army preparing for what they hope will be another special European night. This a place where in the Premiership visiting sides fear to tread. Now it's a case of transferring that sort of form and record into the Champions League. And if Bayer Leverkusen are anything like as compliant as they were last week, then this really should be an occasion where Newcastle take another stride forward in their developments. A look along the Leverkusen line last season made English teams go weak at the knees. They accounted for Liverpool, Manchester United and indirectly Arsenal. But this is a much diluted version, still some familiar faces, few though with untarnished reputations. Unlike the opposition. Sir Bobby Robson thought long and hard yesterday before declaring these players to be part of his strongest ever squad, not just here, but anywhere in his managerial career. Average age tonight is 23, they play without fear, they are a rising force in English and European football. Newcastle have never lost to German opposition. Leverkusen have a reputation as the scourge of the English, but the records show just one win in 9 matches against English clubs, 4-2 against Liverpool in last season's quarter-final. They're getting used to must-win games here. This is the 5th that Newcastle have faced in this competition so far this season. Brinksmanship really seems to suit them, because life on the edge has consistently brought out the very best in them. Some surprises in the Newcastle team though. The headline is the return of Alan Shearer after a 2-game ban, but it's in central defence where there may be a raised eyebrow or two. Sir Bobby Robson has decided to rest Aaron Hughes and Andy O'Brien with Saturday's important Premiership match against Chelsea in mind. So Andy Griffin retains his place and Stephen Caldwell partners Titus Bramble for the very first time. Caldwell's first start in a Champions League game. Likewise Brian Kerr, whose display at Leeds earns him the nod over fit-again Nobby Solano. Leverkusen's new coach Thomas Hörster is in the Claudio Ranieri mould when it comes to team selection. 8 changes for his first game in charge, 6 for his second, and now 5 more tonight. Of the 3 Leverkusen players who represented Germany in the World Cup final, Bernd Schneider is on the sick list, but Oliver Nerville plays and Carsten Ramelow is back to stiffen the midfield. The lone striker França scored against Newcastle last week. The 2 centre-halves, Kleiner and Chris, were hopeless, yet they've been selected again. The chill of recent nights has more or less disappeared. The pitch recently relayed is a touch bumpy. It's only the 4th match on the new surface. If last week's meeting is anything to go by, this should be a canter for Newcastle, with home advantage, with Alan Shearer. But in Newcastle United's case, cold logic can be folly. David Pleat's alongside me. David, are you expecting another Newcastle win?
I am. Evening all. I think that Newcastle can win. The fact that they're favourites is somewhat unusual for them in European competition. Whether the fact that Bayer are in such disarray in their own domestic competition, it will be a relaxer for them tonight to come away from their league form. We'll just have to wait to see, but certainly Newcastle should have the advantage, particularly if they can get an early goal. I think that could easily demoralise Bayer.
Well, they've got an early free kick for the foul on Kieran Dyer. Kleiner and Chris at the heart of the Bayer Leverkusen defence. Had a dreadful time of it last week, and Kleiner's not started too well tonight.
A very tall wall. Big side, Bayer. I'm sure Franca's going to be left up front tonight very much on his own, in a very defensive orientated midfield too.
Robert over the ball. The wall now back the statutory 10 yards. Shearer poised. Shearer strikes it against the base of the wall. And here's Oliver Nerville for Bayer Leverkusen, who did win in the Bundesliga for the first time in 6 games at the weekend. Apparently they were awful for the majority of the game at Hanover. Were trailing 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, and a couple of very late goals rescued them and took them out of the bottom 3 in the German league table. Dyer. Robert. Amiobi is poised far side for Newcastle. Dyer. Brian Kerr. Gary Speed. Newcastle opening with confidence. Bernard. Met on the half volley by Thomas Kleiner. Robert. Quickly in was Bashturk. And that's Christoph Preuss. And talking about the bottom of the Bundesliga table, it is worth pointing out that only 3 points cover the bottom 6 teams. And some great names of the past like Kaiserslautern and Mönchengladbach are also in severe danger of relegation.
And at the other end, competition being won quite easily by Bayern Munich.
Amiobi. 2 goals in the Bayer Arena last week. Robert.
Poor cross, the second poor cross. I think Newcastle will get into good wide positions tonight, and it's so important when they get there that they do produce that vital ball. Both Bernard and Robert have the responsibility for using the width down the left-hand side.
This is Bashturk. And now Nerville. França. Took his goal very well in the first meeting last week, the Brazilian. Bashturk. Preuss.
Good call, I think, from Shea Given. Just a little bit of nervousness, maybe, by Andy Griffin, uncertain whether to clear that ball.
Here's Robert. No trip by Kaluzhny. Danish referee says play on. And this is Gary Speed. Across comes Kleiner for Leverkusen.
Quite clear that Amiobi is going to make these thrusts into the flank positions from the centre, trying to stretch the back four of Bayer.
Here's Speed. Not really picked him up very quickly. And there's Shearer! A moment of history for Alan Shearer. At 32, it's his first ever Champions League goal in open play.
What a start. Great cross in from the left, perfect ball, lovely dinky to the back post. You see Shearer gaining a yard on the sleeping Picenti, gets in front of him. And there's the distraught fullback realising too late. It's all about good defending from left wing crossers. We spoke about it within the first couple of minutes, and we've had a good delivery and a great finish.
Alan Shearer's 14th game in the Champions League. It seems inconceivable. That's a handball by Dyer. It seems inconceivable that he hadn't scored a goal from open play. Just 2 penalties, one for Blackburn and one for Newcastle before tonight. This is Placente, who was caught out. França. Another handball against Kieran Dyer. Second in quick succession. Thomas Hurster says he's not enjoying the job. He's only 10 days into it. He's not enjoying this scoreline, that's for sure. But Alan Shearer just shows there are still frontiers to cross, even at his stage.
Yeah, it's Gary Speed, of course, who's doing such a valuable job. The 2 experienced players who've been looking after the athletic youngsters in the Newcastle side over recent weeks, combining. But it was really, you knew as the ball was being delivered that Shearer was waiting to pounce and deliver.
Classic header, wasn't it?
It was.
This is Steve Caldwell. Now Brian Kerr. 2 young Scots combining.
It will give great confidence to the Caldwell-Bramble pairing at the back, the fact that they've got a cushion.
Here's Griffin. And now Speed, who's crossed, set up Shearer's header. 2 most experienced players by far in a Newcastle side with an average age of only 23. Here's Kerr. Shearer. Ramelow. And now Chris. França. Preuss. A good number of these Leverkusen players have been brought out of the youth team that Thomas Hurster until 10 days ago was actually coaching. One or two seasoned internationals like Nerville, who's won the free kick. Bashtuk. Randall won the ball.
Well, Bashtuk overdoing it a little bit. We'll discuss him a little bit later, Bashtuk, but what a fine player last year in a better team.
Look at the run first of Griffin and now Dyer. Amiobi's in the middle, Robert's in the middle, and Griffin draws the save. Still stung by the fact that what he thought was the winning goal against Juventus was chalked off and put down as a Buffon own goal.
Yeah, but that move just epitomises what Newcastle are about, the quick break. When Bashtuk lost the ball, Dyer was away, found on the run, good ball in, he picked out Griffin. They can break so quickly from defensive areas to the final third, the attacking third, and that's where the strength of this Newcastle side is, pace from midfield.
Corner is short to Kerr. Now Dyer. Momentarily there's a hush around St James's. Doesn't happen too often. Won by Bernard.
It'll be fascinating, John, to see what the philosophy, what the ambition is of the coach on the touchline. You know, you're not going to look for damage limitation, surely. You know, to lose an early goal, they've got to slowly get some passes together. They've got to get their midfield players forward to support Franca. And quite frankly, they can't afford to sit deep. And if they do sit deep, then Newcastle, you know, are going to have all the possession and it's going to be a nothing game. We hope that doesn't happen. We hope that they try and get back on terms and go forward in numbers.
This is Bashtuk. Placente outside him. And Bashtuk doing his utmost to get inside the danger area, but it foundered. And off go Newcastle again. Here's Shearer. Master can get that far. Placente.
It certainly looks a lack of pace in the midfield of Bayer there. Kalusny was really treading water, trying to chase a black and white shirt.
Newcastle's current unbeaten run stands at 7 matches since that FA Cup upset at Molineux. Just one defeat in their last 13 Premiership outings. But at home in the Champions League this season, 2 wins and 2 defeats. Preuss. Ramelow. Now Chris. Placente. Shimak. Poor ball by Chris, straight to Shearer. It's like last week all over again, and here's Amiobi onside. And Shearer's only loosely marked at the back post. And Shearer has made it 2! It's another catastrophic sequence of Leverkusen defending. What price a Shearer hat-trick tonight, I wonder? He's got 2 in the opening 11 minutes.
Well, it was a dreadful ball by Chris in the first place. Amiobi made a forward run. I thought there might have been a hint of offside as Shearer played the ball there, but no. The arm was raised in vain, and then when Amiobi gets there, there's almost a nervousness to tackle him. Not good goalkeeping, not a firm hand, and then a horrific display of nerves at the back post there by Chris, who originally gave the ball away, and Shearer takes advantage. Well, there's Chris seemingly looking at the ball like a hot potato, just can't deal with it. He also had problems in the first game last week.
Problems, David? That's putting it mildly.
Well, I'm a kind man, John.
If it wasn't as serious, it would be amusing.
I don't know if we can get a price on Thomas Horster lasting too long, particularly if you're telling me he's not enjoying the job. This isn't going to be good enough.
Amazing to think that 9 months ago these players were involved in a Champions League final at Hampden. Off goes Amiobi now. 1 or 2 appeals for handball, not from the Newcastle players, it is a corner.
I think Bayer last year played with 3 centre-backs. Vicente was a wing-back raiding, which he's good at. He's already been involved in one poor defensive situation, giving a goal away. I just look at the back four. Chris seems really ill at ease. Kleiner, the big centre-back, is, don't say this, too tall, and he looks a bit of a lumberer when he's running. And the 2 defensive midfield players have no pace.
Apart from that, here's Robert. Header out by Preuss. Dyer. Offside, Robert. But it's not just shape and system, is it, David? It is personnel. They've lost Ballack, who was, if you like, the heart of the team. Zé Roberto, the legs of the team.
Absolutely. Last year they were an exciting side to watch. They had the big Brazilian Lucio at left centre-back. Novotny, of course, the experienced player who was injured. Ballack, who was a wonderful player, but had already decided to side for Bayer around Christmas time, but played very genuinely for Bayer. But of course they were late losers, and from that experience at the end of the season of losing in 3 competitions, they've never really recovered. It was a demoralising end of season. They got hammered as I think Bayer the losers they were termed in the German press.
Leverkusen, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, Leverkusen, and they just haven't been able to recover. You know, once you get on that downward spiral, it's very difficult. You've got to have an inspirational manager.
They've got Thomas Höster, 4 times capped as a German international centre-back, made his debut alongside Jürgen Kohler. Doesn't look like a man having a top time, does he?
Looks like a man who'd rather be at home sitting watching it in the armchair.
But when Klaus Toppmöller was dismissed only 10 days ago, it was the youth team coach Höster who took the call. 25 years with the club. The last 10 days have seemed like a very long time.
We must see some spirit from Bayer, that is for sure. The next 15 minutes going to be absolutely vital. They've got to try and get a foothold into the game and give themselves hope of getting a goal.
Newcastle did, of course, establish a 2-goal lead in last week's game at the Bayer Arena. And then Leverkusen pulled one back and Newcastle wobbled for a while. Then they got their 3rd. And from that point on, victory was reasonably secure. 6 Leverkusen players jostling for position for Neuville's free kick. Comes out to França. Came off Bramble's head and then that of Robert. Baştürk. Shearer doing the defensive job.
Well, 2 players there, it shows the spirit of Newcastle. Robert defending, which the club appreciated, or the crowd appreciated, heading it away. And then the next person that came into contact with a Bayer player was Alan Shearer, the centre forward, the pin man, the man that many people think should be up the field when they're defending, but he's back working.
Keep you up to date with the other game being played in Group A in the San Siro this evening. So far no goals between Inter Milan and Barcelona. The 2 sides that Newcastle after tonight have still to face. In Milan and against Barcelona here on the final match day, which could be some occasion if they hold on to this lead. Placente. Newcastle's aim will not just be to hold on to what they have, but to build on it. Kaluzhny. Preuss. Easy for Bramble. Now Speed. And Robert. And finally Bramble once more.
Good reading there by Colwell, that will give him confidence. He saw Baştürk's run and picked him off nicely. Baştürk is the floating midfield player. They've got 2 defensive midfield players in there, Ramelow and Kaluzhny. And up front they're playing Neuville wide on the right, Schimak on the left and Franca in the middle. But it just proves systems don't win games, it's about players.
Dyer. Kerr. 3 in the centre for Newcastle. Didn't find any of them. But Griffin has another chance. Dyer. Brian Kerr. Poor clearance by Chris. And this is Schimak. We've got the 91st minute winner in the Bundesliga at Hanover. Bernard. No foul by Ramelow.
I think the referee's a little bit lenient. He's probably wanting to let the game flow, and in doing that, I think 3 times already in the game he might have blown for free kicks. But there was Neuville overrunning the ball and putting 4 Bayer players out of the game, and they've got to play with economy. They've got to make the ball do the work. If individuals start getting depressed and trying to do things on their own and become selfish, then it's just to the detriment of the team, and that can always happen when you go 2-0 down, and there's a demoralising effect.
Placente. Backing back was Griffin. Here's Kerr. Bramble.
Speed always coming towards the centre-backs to help them out, to make little angles.
Neuville. Bashchuk. Kalushny. And now Ramelow. Leverkusen's league form has been wretched. 6 wins in their 22 matches so far this season. Only 1 since December the 7th. It's cost them their reputation and their coach.
Dyer made a great forward run there, but wasn't spotted.
But poor defending by Newcastle, and last week's goal scorer França is in again. Now, was he brought down? Oh, Shay Given could be in trouble. It's a penalty, but what about the Newcastle goalkeeper? Will the referee deem that there was cover back on the line in the form of Caldwell and Bramble?
Well, I don't think there was cover, and I think he may think that Bramble in a position to help him out, but I think 8 times out of 10 the goalkeeper would have gone. Absolutely.
In your game, Monday night in the Premiership, Tottenham and Fulham, Mike Taylor.
But I have to tell you, it's another game, another referee, and they see it differently. You know, you can only get consistent when you've got the same referee in the same circumstance.
Even though, obviously, we're supporting Newcastle's cause, one has to say that surely Shay Given should have been sent off.
It's a straightforward 1-against-1, and Frank is on to score. He's the last man.
Neuville with the penalty kick. And isn't that the ultimate irony? Given, who shouldn't be on the pitch, has saved it.
Well, it was a poorly taken kick. Whether Given just made it, really didn't have to do too much. It wasn't well struck, it had no strength in the shot, and it really, I suppose, epitomises Bayer's overall malaise at the moment. Great opportunity to get a goal back, to get some confidence. It was a great opportunity indeed for Franca. But had Newcastle gone to 10 men, had the goalkeeper been sent off, all of a sudden we have a different game, and they will reflect that the goalkeeper should have gone.
And in fact, he didn't even get a yellow card, David.
That's quite correct. He motioned to him straight away, get back on your line, I've given the penalty.
Not that a yellow card would necessarily have been the correct decision, but no card at all for a heinous error like that. Well, it's extraordinary for those of us that see a lot of domestic football in this country. Here's Robert. Newcastle given a huge slice of fortune. Speed lost out, França with a decent tackle. Bashchuk. Home supporters are booing França for going down under the challenge of Given. Neuville. Bashchuk. Outside him is Preuss with time. Good take by Given.
To be fair to Bayer, 3-4 players in the box there from that cross.
So foul by Kleiner, pushing into the back of Shearer.
Shearer and Amiobi's early movement, particularly when they're splitting and allowing Dyer to get through the spaces, is definitely causing the 2 centre-backs a problem. Amiobi started very well. He should be a confident player at the moment after his recent form. Maybe a challenger to Bellamy.
Strangely, Newcastle have yet to sell out St James's Park for a Champions League game this season. There are about 10,000 empty seats. But if Newcastle win tonight, they could sell every ticket for their final group game against Barcelona here at least twice over. Only 300 fans have made the journey from Germany, and they may just be regretting that. Precious little for them to cheer so far. Bashtuk. Placente. Oh dear.
I mean, that is careless. It's a poor application. And you have to say there's no excuses, and I wonder if Mr. Horse will throw a boot at half-time, because that really niggles managers when they're free in space and they're wanting a good cross, they're getting people in the box, and it was just as though he was careless.
Do managers do that sort of thing then, David?
Only in the north of England, I'm told. Southern softy managers don't. They talk it through.
You're a Midlander, so where do you stand?
Always on the fence, in the middle, John. you know that fence.
Neville. Bashtuk. On again for Neville, who's offside.
Looked close, very close. I mean, those offsides are marginal, but I wouldn't have thought that he was offside there. I thought that he should have been given the benefit of the doubt.
Ramelow. Neville. Those two played in the World Cup final for Germany.
Not the most creative player, Ramelow. Very strong player, of course, likes to play at the back. More a destroyer than a creator.
A piece of tape on his earrings, about as secure as the Leverkusen defence by the looks of it.
I hope he doesn't lose it.
This is Ramelow, standing up to the challenge of Dyer.
That's his strength.
Neville. Bashtuk. Ramelow. Now the Argentine, Placente, has got Šimak outside him. Fances by the near post. Bashtuk's arriving. Placente's in there as well. This is still Jan Šimak.
Cosmopolitan lot, the Bayer team. Czechoslovakian with a nice foot over the ball, making an angle, but rather an insipid effort. But they are a mixture, Argentinian, Brazilians, Poles, and you wonder about the scouting networks of these clubs and whether, like in England, the German teams aren't encouraging enough homegrown players. Success is often fleeting, and if it's done with a cosmopolitan group, it generally spits up fairly quickly.
Klaus Toppmüller's great boast was that he knew the Brazilian market. But looking at his investment in players like Chris and maybe França, certainly the Leverkusen supporters feel that club record investments in the South American market haven't really had a return yet.
Well, sometimes what happens is they get carried away with good signings and then they think they can recreate it again. And Lucio and Ziraberto were outstanding signings, and they could make money on both of them, probably. But then they go and do it again. You can only get lucky so much.
Šimak to Bashtuk. Newcastle exposed again. Cross came Andy Griffin, and at the end of another uncertain defensive moment for Newcastle, it's a corner.
Well, I hope these statisticians, it's a block by Colwell in my view, and it should be a free kick, and maybe the statisticians in the studios are looking at the amount of free kicks tonight that aren't given.
Kleiner is the tallest player in the Leverkusen team at 6'4". Neville just about the shortest. And it's Shearer's header away. Neville. Newcastle leading, for the benefit of latecomers to our coverage from St James's Park this evening, through two Alan Shearer goals scored in the opening 11 minutes of play. França. Stake by Preuss.
Rather a hurried pass by the young player. He's only 21. Maybe a little bit of nervousness with Preuss.
And is it significant that Zivkovic, who would be a replacement for Preuss, is warming up? Here's Amiobi. Lucky to get a second bite at it, but he could be in. It's a corner.
Once again, credit Amiobi, but off the ball, there's Dyer making a lovely little diagonal run right across the face of the front of the box and opening up the space for Amiobi to make that little movement to get to the right to get his effort in on goal. Dyer, so important, can run all day. There's not many engines like him, and certainly not many as quick as him.
Well, the England coach is amongst the crowd here this evening to watch Kieran Dyer. Here's Robert. Speed.
Well, that was the speed of old, tearing into the box, out jumping people in the air. Goals galore from that wonderful jump. But of course he's matured so much at Newcastle this season particularly. I think Bobby Robson has done wonders for him. He's settled him down as a more defensive, steady player. His passing's improved so much and he's been massively influential. And I think he's got the record, has he not, of more Premiership games than any other player.
Newcastle possessed the record Premiership appearance holder and of course the record Premiership goal scorer as well in Alan Shearer. Griffin.
And the oldest manager, of course. Records galore here.
Well, Chris is going to be the player withdrawn. He's not even lasted half an hour. He was definitely at fault for the second goal. And he's generally had another very unhappy time of it. Cristiano Marques Gomez. Hard to believe that he played 11 of Brazil's qualifiers leading up to the World Cup and only lost his place to Roque Junior at the last moment.
When we look at Brazilians, they're the greatest exporters of players across the world, and the agents come to you and they've got 5 caps, 10 caps, 20 caps, and you've never heard of them. The fact is, Brazil plays so many games each year and they play so many internationals and they blood so many players. So you've always got to be a little bit wary of Brazilians with too many with caps.
Kerr. Griffin. So far there hasn't, apart from when the goals have been scored, been the thunderous atmosphere around the ground that we're used to at Premiership fixtures.
Well, I think that when you score 2 early goals like that, there has to be a sense amongst the crowd of anticlimax. What they want now is a good Newcastle footballing display. They've got the movement, they've certainly got the movement from midfield with Dyer getting forward. They've got the interest of Amiobi in Bellamy's place, certainly sparkling. And the fascination of Bramble playing with Colwell at the back. Hauck's Kerr progressing as a right-sided player, a possibility. There are, nice little trap there. Can he come in for Solano and play more games? Beautiful play.
Gary Speed with the right. Shearer got his head to the ball but couldn't get the leverage and the power. Third of the game gone. Newcastle on their way to 6 points in the group, if the evidence so far is anything to go by. Šimak, França, Jan Šimak again. Favours it on his left. He'll have to hit it on his right.
Well, he did well, Šimak. He certainly sat Bernard down. He went for that one. He sold him that dummy beautifully. Went for the shot there, you see Bernard. But to Bernard's credit, he got up quickly. But then Šimak didn't do too well with the shot. But beginning to drift off the left-hand touchline. He's playing reasonably narrow. Haven't got great width. They're hoping that Placenti and maybe Preuss from right back can give them some support, but they are a nervous team, there's no question about that.
Zivkovic has slotted in alongside Kleiner at the back. Preuss winning the tackle with Shearer. Šimak, poor first touch. Launching pad possibly for Brian Kerr. Couldn't link up with Dyer. Ramelow. Bernard. Came off Robert last of all. It's a frustrating talent, Laurent Robert. Bobby Robson was concerned last week that his side took the foot off the pedal at 3-1 up. He's not all that happy down there at the moment.
No, he just feels that there was just a slight lack at the back there of concentration. It's you know, it's easy to switch off. You know, you're 2-0, you think you're coasting. Referee spotting that free kick, which is nice to think that he wasn't far from the action, and he can recognise a free kick when he sees it.
You're not being critical, David, are you? Isn't that a bleak way of yours?
Cute.
Cute's the word. Placenta. Shimak.
Sometimes they're tempted to run with the ball from midfield because they haven't got two targets up the front. A couple of times Basturk, certainly Shimak, Nervel have overrun the ball. They want to make a forward pass, but they look up, they only see Franca. They would probably like to see a target man with a partner up there. But when you've only got one striker, sometimes you are limited with your options.
Well, they specialise in non-scoring strikers. Leverkusen this season, their top scorers are Birovka and Schneider. Neither of them available tonight, both midfield players in reality, and both with only 6 goals. Nerville 2 goals in 34 games this season, France 5 in 20. Ashtuk. Leverkusen's free kick. A few words of dissent coming from Gary Speed.
Well, the Danish referee more interested in Speed's dissent than the challenge.
Ball's back in play with Placente, and now Shimak. Dyer. Caught by the trailing leg of Kaluzhny.
Small, sharp player against a tall, slow player. And that's what happens. They stick out a leg and they go over. That's not the first time Kaluzhny has fouled tonight. I think it's Dyer's infectious running from midfield that really gives the Bayer team the problem. Robert so far hasn't really exploded wide. Sven came up this afternoon, has got a lot of time for some of the Newcastle players, the younger players, and quite rightly so. It's just a shame Janus isn't fit to play here this evening too.
Amiobi. Oh, Dyer was pulled back, that's a penalty. Well, and you know who's going to take it? It's going to be Alan Shearer with a chance of a hat-trick.
Yeah, and can you tell me the last time he scored a first-half hat-trick, John?
I would imagine the day he got 5 against Sheffield Wednesday might have been a candidate for that.
Well, it'll give you some of the viewers something to think about. But Dyer once again breaking into the box.
So it's to be the overlord of St James's. 2 goals already. It's his 15th hat-trick, his first for 3.5 years, and St James's Park rises as one to their number 1.
Well, he's not only a great hero here and a popular man, but you know he's a very humble man. And I'm told from the coaching staff here, no one does more for the club off the field than Shearer, as well as on the field. Fully deserving. Speed congratulating him there in the centre circle. But how well he's done for players like Bellamy, Amiobi, Lualua. You know, it's so good to have the right type of experience up front to bring youngsters on.
After the drought for Shearer in the Champions League comes the flood. A 36-minute first-half hat-trick. Kerr. Shearer. Here's Kerr. Leverkusen are at 6s and 7s again. Shearer's header. Hit Kleiner. Griffin. Kerr to Dyer. Andy Griffin. Brian Kerr. Slip. Oh, and Amiobi might have turned it in.
Came quite quickly and came slightly behind him there, but good play by Kerr, and Newcastle really going for the kill now. Could be a wonderful night for the Geordie supporters. They're beginning to put on a bit of an exhibition, and the team in red, I have to say, look demoralised. Oliver Neuville and Bashturk and certainly Shemak, they've got to do their share of defending, and it's all hands to the pump, and they're too wide open. They're too wide open in the middle of the field, and this could really be a glory night for Newcastle.
Speed. Laurent Robert thought about it and tried it.
He'll get some stick for that one. No need to be selfish when you're 3-0 up. Continue the champagne football. You know, wants to get in on the act. Wholly ambitious and wildly inaccurate.
Well, he's not having the best of times, Sven-Göran Eriksson, on some fronts at the moment. If only he could persuade Alan Shearer to play a few games for him. Games against Liechtenstein and Turkey, involving Yildiray Bashturk coming up for England.
Yeah, it won't be an easy game, the technical Turks, as we call them.
Offside's been given against France. To put Shearer's hat-trick in some sort of perspective, it's his 15th in all competitions, including internationals and under-21 internationals. It's his third hat-trick for Newcastle. It's his 12th in club football, and it is his first since he got those 5 in one of Bobby Robson's very first games as manager against Sheffield Wednesday in September 1999, a day when Robson's new charges scored 8. Beyond the bounds of possibility, is it?
Well, to score 45 goals by hat-tricks is quite incredible in a career.
Speed. Dyer. Kerr won the ball, couldn't retain possession, and this is Oliver Neuville, those who was a runner-up in 4 different competitions in the calendar year 2002. Bundesliga, German Cup, Champions League, World Cup.
Penny for the thoughts, I suppose, of Topmeiler now, probably sitting watching this at home in Germany, and probably has 101 stories to tell of how all this came about, and there's the happy youngsters hoping one day to emulate Alan Shearer.
And of course Shearer has emulated Faustino Asprilla, the only other man to score a hat-trick for Newcastle United in a Champions League game on that never-to-be-forgotten night against Barcelona, and there could be another of them coming up 3 weeks hence. 3 weeks tonight, the final Group A game against Barcelona on this ground.
19th of March, don't miss it.
Amiobi. In between times, there's a much trickier looking visit to the San Siro to play Inter Milan a week next Tuesday. França. Shemak, good defending. Andy Griffin.
Solid performer, Andy Griffin. 5 years now, I think, since he came from Stoke City.
Offside against Dyer.
Just went a little bit early there from Speed's lofted forward pass, but he's on the ball, Dyer. He's lively. He's certainly given too big a problem for the 2 defensive midfield players to handle.
Kleiner back to Hans-Jörg Butt. We shouldn't forget, of course, that at 2-0 up, could well have been 2-1, and Newcastle might well have been down to 10 men had the referee taken the view that I think most football observers would expect and sent off Shay Given for the denial of a goal-scoring opportunity when he brought down França. It seems like ancient history now. Here's Kieran Dyer. All the way past Placente, and eventually the free kick is given in Leverkusen's favour. This the place to be tonight in the Champions League with these 3 first-half goals. Alan Shearer's hat-trick inside the first 36 minutes. Also tonight it's Ajax 0, Arsenal 0. You can catch the highlights of the Arsenal game, plus all the rest of the night's Champions League action on ITV1 at 11:30. Then on Saturday, Newcastle against Chelsea is a featured match in the Premiership, ITV1 from 10:30. Not forgetting 2-hour coverage of the Worthington Cup final on Sunday. Extended highlights of Manchester United against Liverpool from 6 o'clock, again on ITV1. Robert. Laurent Robert. Oh, but spilt it.
Well, the nervousness that is in the back group of Bayer defenders really extending to Butts, the goalkeeper, too. It was interesting that when Zikovic came on, you know, I think 2 or 3 of the back 4 looked at each other and said, is it me that's going to be exchanged? And I think any one of 3 at that time would have been happy to be exchanged for Zikovic. As it was the Brazilian that got banished, but I think the right back, Bruce, he's had a tough time, and Klein has shown no authority at all, the centre-back, in this first period.
Turk, across comes Steve Caldwell. You know, it's no surprise to anyone that saw the game last week, David, where Kleiner and Chris were anything but convincing.
Well, you made that point, John, at the start of the game, and of course when you lose confidence it's very difficult. You need a good win to get it back. Robert almost giving them a helping hand just before half-time. There is Kleiner, the centre-back, young player, finding it very difficult, and he'll go home knowing that the man he was supposed to be marking has scored a hat-trick in the first half, albeit one of them from the penalty spot.
And in answer to your earlier query, David, the last time that Alan Shearer scored a first-half hat-trick was in that 8-0 win against Sheffield Wednesday.
Well done, John.
Back in 1999.
There's no substitute for a knowledgeable commentator.
No substitute for guesswork, David.
I wonder if Bobby Robson at half-time will take this opportunity. 3-0 up. His captain done a marvellous job, got 3. Will he bring Carl Court on? I've got a feeling he just might.
1 minute stoppage time to be played. That's 1 minute.
He's got some forward attackers, Court, Loire. He's got the creative Viana and Solano. But I'm pretty confident that Bobby Robson might rest one of his older players, whether it be Speed or whether it be Shearer. He could certainly give Viano half an hour, and I'm so sure Ahir Court's playing very well at reserve level at the moment. He may just give him a lift. Bobby Robson, the master psychologist, he doesn't have to pay for psychologists, he does it himself.
Well, we've had the promised additional minute, and the members of the Toon Army, those that are not heading for the refreshment kiosks, are preparing to acclaim one of their 2 favourite sons. Hats off to Alan Shearer, the central figure in a wonderful first half for Newcastle. His first ever goal from open play in the Champions League, followed 6 minutes later by another, followed by a penalty to complete a hat-trick, his first in 3.5 years. It might have been very different had the referee not been so lenient to Shay Gibbon, but that's ancient history. What's present and correct is a 3-0 scoreline in Newcastle's favour at half-time.
So Alan Shearer enjoying his Champions League comeback very much, thank you. He's enjoyed the first half. We'll be looking back at all the major talking points from the first 45 minutes in a few minutes.
It's tough.
Well, 3 goals in any game, you know, tells a lot, and he did it in 45 minutes, but it was team play. I mean, obviously he put the finishing art to it. 2 great headers and a penalty which we know he can smash in. With the first half went in 3 stages actually. We had a brilliant beginning, dynamic football, and got ourselves in an early position, a winning position. And then complacency set in, to be honest. And we thought we'd done enough, and we thought the game was won. And they came very much into it. You know, we went for offside, which is a bit silly, really. And we got caught, and then, you know, poor penalty, I think, poor penalty decision, I mean.
All right, Bobby, well, the second half just about to get underway.
Well, that's right, and we need 1 goal, and then we'll be, you know, safe and sound, I hope. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sounds content enough, and well might he be. St James's Park, full of expectation, full of people thinking of a possible quarter-final. That is, though, very premature, with still 2 extremely tough group games to go after this. You saw on your screens confirmation of the 1 half-time substitution that's been made by Leverkusen, not Newcastle. Marko Babic replacing the skipper, Karsten Ramelow. And there is Babic, who's a Croatian international, and has slotted into one of the holding positions in central midfield. Here's number 47, Kleiner. Royce, França, and now Nerville. Nerville has taken over the captain's armband with Ramelow's departure. Placente, Šimak. First involvement for Babic, and now Kaluzhny. Clearance, flicked on by Shearer. Off gallops Amiobi. What's Newcastle's best approach to this second half, David, please?
Well, I think that Bobby will ask for a really good tempo first 15-20 minutes. I think that's important. Then he'll look to freshen it probably with a couple of changes. But obviously they need to keep it tight, keep steady, and not lose sight of what they did so well in the first half. That was the runs of Dyer, the partnership at the back, which was fairly safe, albeit for the mistake that led to the penalty. And of course he'll keep Amiobi on. I think he'll want to see Amiobi have a good 90 minutes, but he'll be talking about tempo. They mustn't sit too deep, and they mustn't let the Reds side, the Bayer side, have a possession game in front of them. They've got to continue to force the game, or also sell the supporters short, and Bobby Robson's very aware of that. And sometimes it's no good having a good first half and a poor second half, because the last impressions are the ones that stick with the supporters on the way home. They want another good half, and then it will be a great night for them.
But their natural inclination, David, is to attack, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think they're one of the most forward-looking sides in the Premiership. You know, they want to support. They leave at times holes a little bit in midfield, which other teams can exploit. But they've got a great philosophy.
Nerville. Robert. Newcastle's home record in the Premiership is second to none. 12 wins, including 11 in succession. 1 draw against Arsenal when they were reduced to 10 men with the sending off of Robert. And 1 defeat early season when Leeds, who were still going well at that point, came here and won by 2-0. Perfect record against German clubs, played 3, won 3, and on each of those occasions they've scored 3. Kleiner.
That's good pressuring by the Newcastle forwards there, forcing Kleiner into a hurried clearance.
Not the first of the evening from Kleiner. It's only his 17th senior appearance. Was least comfortable. Bernard. Robert. It's being held. And here's Dyer. Kerr. A little slow that time, and Placente was rapidly in. Goes Dyer. Even he, Mr. Perpetual Motion, couldn't keep that within bounds. So Bobby Robson said that Newcastle were so good in training yesterday they should have charged admission.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated to try and read managers' lips, and I see Bobby Robson, I'm sure he was saying there, don't stop the ball, keep the ball moving, keep them on the run, keep changing the angle of the ball, keep passing it fast, and then they can't get near you. You know, don't dwell, don't try and take liberties. You know, it has to remind young players, you know, that's got to be the play, that's got to be the plan. Fast passing.
Vicente was a shining star in the Bayer side that reached last season's final. Babic, too long for França, dealt with comfortably by Olivier Bernard.
Well, there's a good example of Bernard's defending compared with the first goal when Vicente stood and watched and allowed Shearer to get in front of him. There was Bernard in a good covering position, and sadly for Bayer, Neuville was hanging around 20 yards wider with no thought of trying to get in the box to pick up a goal. That's the difference.
Griffin. Vicente. Now Shimak, supposed to be Balak's replacement in this team, struggled to hold down her first team place. Griffin holding off França. Babic. Leverkusen go from here to face Werder Bremen in their next Bundesliga engagement on Saturday. And then they've got 2 trips to Bayern Munich in the space of 3 days, one in a cup semi-final and the other, far more importantly for Hörster and his staff, in the league.
I think that's the question that's going to be fired at Hörster after the game. You know, where do you go from here, Hörster? And he'll probably say Werder Bremen on Saturday.
Babic, França, Bramble was strongly in. Bashtuk, Shimak. Vicente. And now Dyer. Only Shearer ahead of him. And Kaluzhny plays it back to Butt. Outstanding at Leeds on Saturday, Kieran Dyer, with his first Premiership goals of the season. Another effervescent display. Neuville. A little bit more purpose about Leverkusen now, but he showed too much of that to Bramble. Babic. Shimak. Opening up a little for Shimak. França. And Kaluzhny.
Lovely fast ball there by Shimak into France's feet. He couldn't quite deal with it. And then when they got a little bit of a ricochet, Kaluzhny hit that ball rather wildly, and there you see what the...
He's got a headache, I think.
What the poor coach is having to suffer.
On and off the pitch. There's no sign of his boss this evening. The amply built Rainer Kallmund isn't here. Painful viewing back home in Germany. Larsen. It's only the 5th time he's officiated in a Champions League game. Shimak. Vicente.
Bobby Robson just moving out the box. Whenever he moves out the box, you know that Bobby senses there's a slight complacency, or they're not moving the ball in the style that he wants. Would like to see Robert get a little bit of ball on the left and get involved and have 1 or 2 runs. For a side that's been on top, certainly more purposeful, he hasn't really had a lot of aggressive play down the left-hand side. It's mainly come from dire surges through the middle.
Here's Neuville. Babic. Amiobi for Newcastle, and Dyer set off on a run, and Amiobi's skills are good, and he's got 3 for company. It's still Amiobi! What does Sir Bobby Robson call him? A lanky Bambi.
Yes, but he's getting stronger legs, isn't he? All the time he's getting more power, and once again he wants to go forward, he wants to look for shots, and that's what you want to have from your strikers, someone who is determined to try and get towards that 18-yard box, and you have to be brave to get in there, and I think Amiobi's had a splendid month here.
Standing in Barcelona, 2 goals in Leverkusen, 6 goals in his last 6 starts for the Newcastle first team. This is Shearer. Griffin. Kerr. Then via Dyer, back to Kerr. Bernard. Amiobi, a focal point inside the penalty area. Header by Kleiner is not the best. And Dyer, who seems to be everywhere at times, stretched in to win it.
Yeah, we saw Shimak's attempt to get that ball, and you saw Dyer's attempt, and once again you saw the difference in the drive of players from the two sides.
Bramble. Amiobi. Given away to Shimak. News coming in from Turf Moor, that's FA Cup replay this evening. Burnley 3, Fulham 0 now. And Fulham involved in Premiership action on the Premiership on ITV1 at 10:30 this Saturday evening. They have a game against Sunderland. Newcastle against Chelsea is another of the featured matches.
Well, Fulham have played 4 games in 7 days.
Think of the money though, David.
Secondary to performance and players, and there's Bobby, he's having a little scowl.
Robert. Dyer. Griffin. Shearer. Came to Amiobi. And back now via Leverkusen legs to Shearer and Robert. And off goes Shearer again, and for once Kleiner's there first.
Now, for a brief second there, Kleiner took his eye off the ball. He was more worried about Shearer.
Bernard.
Must be rather daunting to play against a really top centre forward who's got a hat-trick in the first half when you're taking apprenticeship strides.
Dyer, full of energy. Kicked away by Placente. That's a goal kick.
Good position by Griffin there, supporting the attack. That's why Newcastle do so well. Bernard and Griffin are quite happy to go forward, and without a really massively defensive holding midfield player. Speed is always trying to protect the centre halves as best he can, but it's not a job that he was born to do. Does it very well. But I'm quite sure when Bobby looks around this summer to augment this talented squad, that might be the area he's looking at.
Step over was by Dyer. Space for Gary Speed. Robert off and running, and Price just managed to cut it out. Bashchuk. Griffin into the path of Caldwell. Newcastle haven't scored since the 36th minute, when Shearer completed his hat-trick from the penalty spot. Amiobi. St James's Park faithful sensing another. It's Shearer! Would you believe that? He's missed the easiest chance of the lot.
But credit Amiobi. Superb run, wonderful footwork. There's a smiling Geordie. A great ball by Dyer that set Amiobi free. He's been thrusting down those flanks all evening. Look at this footwork. Right foot, then left. Inside 2 defenders. He has a quick look up and says to the greatest goal scorer in English football, roll that one in. And he just shows his manager that he's human.
Good job it's not 0-0. I think he can be forgiven.
4. Could have been 4. All Shearer's 4.
Only 2 men in Champions League history have scored 4 goals in a game. Marco van Basten and Simone Inzaghi.
Has anyone scored 5 ever?
not in the Champions League.
You have to say, a game like tonight presents a real chance of Shearer getting 5 if Newcastle can turn the screw a little bit.
I'll tell you what, I'll find you a picture in a minute of someone that did score 5 famously in a game, and it's not Alan Shearer against Sheffield Wednesday. We're talking England against Cyprus.
Oh, Mr. Malcolm.
There he is, Super Mag.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Who's recently been overtaken by Alan Shearer in Newcastle's all-time scorers list. Shearer's now 4th, behind the great Jackie Milburn at the top of the list, Len White, and he's only 2 short of Hughie Gallagher in 3rd place. So great names. Shearer's certainly not out of place amongst them. Kerr's cross. Kleiner stooping header. Corner.
Going with confidence, John Kerr on the right-hand side. I'm sure Bobby Robson isn't looking to put Solano on.
Leverkusen are thinking of making their 3rd and final permitted substitution. Oliver Nerville's been struggling for a little while, and Thomas Badaric is going to be sent on. So after this, Leverkusen can do no more in terms of personnel changes. Badaric, who was a rare bright spot in the first game in the Bay Arena last week.
Nerville was a very big disappointment.
A groin injury that's seen him go off. Robert's corner. Thomas Badaric isn't in the best of health. He was struggling to make the bench. He's suffering from a heavy cold that ordinarily would have kept him out of the 18 tonight, but needs must. They've got so few fit players by Leverkusen that he's been pressed into rather unwilling service. Bashtuk. França. Kaluzhny. Christoph Preuss. Now Badaric. He's won 1 cap for Germany. A very pleasant welcome from Titus Bramble.
Well, it was a fierce challenge. He took the ball. There's no question about that. He caught the ball.
He also caught some of the man having taken the ball, which is fair game for a defender.
But I think he caught the man accidentally. You can't. There's no intent there, and the referee has recognised that. Here you see him, got the ball, and Badaric really slides over the top of him, then holds his knee. I'm not sure if he was caught on the knee. To be fair to the German side, they've been thoroughly out-fought, shall I say, and yet they haven't shown any motions of rolling about on the field until possibly this attempt by Badaric, but we shouldn't prejudge him. He's certainly got no options left. He's run out of options, and he's still rolling. He's rolled off the stretcher.
Well, he can't be too badly hurt if he's able to actually roll off the stretcher, can he?
I'm trying to be as kind as possible, because I don't think we should be partisan in this. It's usually the English players that don't foul hard and the foreign players that foul hard, and they roll about and we don't roll about. And I'm saying this side tonight, they haven't in any way tried to con the referee and play games. But
is that because they're really not that bothered about the game anyway, David?
Well, they haven't shown a great attitude, but I think that would be to take it away from the demoralising start that Newcastle provided for them.
So Badaric off the pitch, receiving treatment. And Leverkusen playing with 10, and they can't make any more substitutions. Badaric injured within, a minute of coming on. There is some movement in that left leg there. Applying treatment just above the knee. Some at Leverkusen's night if, having just sent on their last substitute, he then is injured and is unable to continue, but he's got to his feet now. Thomas Hurster didn't know that he was in a tough job before, he does now.
Yes, I don't think there'd be too many applicants. Of course, there'll be the usual when it's advertised. But it's not an easy job. 23 points in the German league. 3rd equal bottom, I think, at the moment.
Amiobi. Dyer just straight offside. He's back onside now.
For once, a subtle pass was required by Amiobi. He didn't quite spot it. He just needs to roll it behind Placenti.
Bramble. But Darich is back on, moving reasonably freely. And here's Bashtuk. Nice ball for Šimak. Babic is getting forward in this attack for Leverkusen. Still though, it's Jan Šimak. And Kerr got a foot to it. And Caldwell cleared it.
You won't mind playing against Šimak. He tends to do the same thing all the time. Drop his shoulder, cut inside, force him into the ruck. Newcastle are doing it well.
Babic. Stooping was Griffin. Calls for handball waved away against Bashtuk. Marko Babic having his shirt pulled by Brian Kerr. Good spot by the referee. Kerr, who prefers to play in central midfield, I think I'm right in saying, David, being asked to fill in on the right.
Yes, played at Tottenham recently for Newcastle in a particularly good second half performance they had, but he did a good working job in the first half. And I think sometimes he plays at this stage just to give Solano a reminder.
4 waiting for Babic's free kick. And it's that man Shearer who heads it away again.
Yeah. Like Les Ferdinand, another fine Newcastle centre forward who we haven't mentioned tonight. He does great defensive work in the air, does Alan Shearer, particularly in that near post area. Comes back, defends the corners, defends the free kicks. Invaluable.
Babic. Šimak. Fall nicely for speed. Good use of the ball, Robert. Shearer's on his blocks on this near side. It'll come for Dyer, and Robert's unmarked inside him. And Amiobi's up as well. Chances here, but the cross is too close to butt.
Just run out of ground. He did tremendously well, did Dyer. They're playing a very tight line now, and they're trying to play a high line up the field. And they're going to get caught, obviously, for the pace. They'll get caught on a 1-2, or someone will do an individual dribble. There's too much grass between the back four and the goalkeeper. But they're trying to play further up the field so they get the possession in the Newcastle half. But they are susceptible to that type of break there by Dyer. Just run out of ground, unlucky.
França. He scored against England at Wembley, França. Haven't been too many other international highlights for him. Here's Šimak, and now França. And that was very nearly an own goal, but it's a corner conceded by Griffin.
Bramble there, a little bit of loose play there. You see the ball bounce up, then he gets on the stretch. Nice little reverse pass, but Griffin does very well to cover. It would have been rather cruel had that ball gone into the net.
Three-quarters of the game played. In by Šimak. Shay Given, who's regained his status as the undisputed #1 goalkeeper here. He's left out of a couple of Champions League games before Christmas against Juventus and Kiev. Kaluzhny. Babic. Bramble might have cut it out, didn't. França has found Bashtuk.
Good defending by Bernard. Had quite a good game tonight from the left-back position. And a loose ball that might just signal the start of a couple of substitutions. I would have thought with 3/4 of the game gone now is a good time. Newcastle are comfortable. I think we can safely say, John, that at this stage we can't see Bayer scoring 4.
You're right, changes are afoot. This is Robert. A few players out there thinking, is it going to be me coming off? Amiobi held back, Newcastle's free kick. Chance for the substitution to be made. And it's the Peruvian, Alberto Solano, who's missed the last couple of games. And Kieran Dyer getting a standing ovation. Universal acclaim for another all-action performance. And the ever-popular Solano on for a run for the final 20 minutes or so.
Vianney too, I think we may see.
I just wonder here, is Robert considering this to be within range?
Well, he is. There's not many that hit him from 40, 50 yards with great power. I think the centre-back at Rangers, Amoruso, is it? He can do this. I think he's going to go for it.
So can Robert on his day. Oh, and it was nearly his day.
Well, it was fast and low, but I think it probably took 2 bounces before Botts. It needed to just be a little bit more of a fizzer.
Newcastle have 6 men stationed inside the Leverkusen area. A couple on the edge as well. It's another corner. Shimak in the Alice band. They are in vogue at the moment, apparently.
Speed on the edge of the box. He's the man. Forward run.
Such a good jumper. Oh, Shearer! Well, he's had chances to make it 4 and 5 in this second half.
Well, I think he was really under challenge there. I don't think that was a real chance.
Goalkeeper got a fist to it. Still barking out the orders, the skipper. Comes back from whence it came. Robert's throw. Good distance on it too. Well won by Speed. Very few lost causes with him. Solano, Robert, Shearer. Christopher Zivkovic. Laurent Robert. Andy Griffin. Speed. Solano. Flag was up against Amiobi.
Solano adds that little bit of subtlety, doesn't he? On the right-hand side, he's very clever with his passes, Solano. He's the type of player that can easily play the people on a high, like Amiobi tonight, into those spaces. But Kerr's gone into more centre midfield. In fact, Kerr's playing more on the left as at this moment, but the tactics haven't changed. Newcastle playing with a back 4, playing with width, the same principles of play that have stood them in such good stead this season.
A terrific side to watch. It's their 41st game of the season. Those matches have produced 123 goals, 69 of them scored by Newcastle. Babic for a labouring Leverkusen. Bashturk. Babic has continued his run, that's better, and that's 3-1. And arguably it's the best move of the night.
Oh, a gorgeous ball by Bashturk. Beyond the back 4. Babic, far more creative than Ramelow. Did take it well. There's Bashturk, he sees the run, he continues his run well, he just shrugs Griffin off. Griffin doesn't really stay with him, he goes with him, but he's not sure. It's over Caldwell's head, and there he hits it as it drops on the half volley. It's a fine goal.
Well, Newcastle aren't conceding many goals at the moment. Only the 3rd time their defence has been breached in the last 7 games, but they don't often do clean sheets in the Champions League. They've only had 1 this season. Strangely enough, that was against Juventus.
I think it was quite clear that Babic was looking for the return ball. It was Griffin that couldn't quite stay with him.
Bad tackle by Badaric on Bernard. There's the goal scorer. 4 Champions League goals now. The other 3 all came against Maccabi Haifa.
Well, it was our man that was rolling around a little bit earlier, trying to get his, nearly said reward, but that's certainly the wrong word, to try and get his supposed victim, Bernard, back into trouble there. So not the most popular man with the crowd, but once again Bernard does well, he gets on his feet.
Robert's free kick. Amiobi, away by Babic. It was Bramwell that was involved with Badaric first time, wasn't it? Shimak. Sven-Göran Eriksson's been much criticised for leaving games early, but there are no planes out of Newcastle tonight, are there?
I came up on the same plane as he's definitely staying overnight. He's catching the 9:40 back if you want to know.
Bernard. Good run by Olivier Bernard. And he lost his footing. Bramble. Robert. Newcastle supporters would love this second half to be garnished with at least one goal. They were spoiled in the first 36 minutes when Shearer was building his hat-trick. It's an ugly challenge by Zivkovic, leading into Shearer from a long way out. And this is definitely in Robert territory.
Yeah, a real push there onto Shearer, but it was that clever ball round the corner from Solano. He makes those little triangles, he makes those little patterns, and he comes inside, he follows his ball in, that leaves the space outside for the fullback coming. I like the way Solano plays in a wide position.
Well, this is closer in. Demands a little more subtlety than the last one.
I don't think you'll get it if it's Robert. Robert will be a whiz-bang, Solano will be the subtlety. It's Robert.
Well, they'll try and curl it with some power. A couple of yards too high and slightly wide.
Well, he's had a few attempts at goal tonight. There was that very ambitious attempt in the first half from distance. 2 free kicks this half. And I think Bobby at 70 is saying to himself, I could have taken that better. See, you want high standards all the time, you get spoilt. And you have a young team that's listening.
There is a feeling amongst some of the Newcastle staff that Robert could produce a bit more often. Here's Bashturk. Another one now for Leverkusen would make it interesting, and they've got a corner.
Credit Bashturk, he's kept at it. Must be very difficult for him, having played in such a good side last year and losing so many compatriots to injury and to transfers to other clubs. He's still there. He's got to fight his corner. He's got to show spirit.
Chimak. Oh, off the bar. That's an escape for Newcastle. And here comes Preuss. He's met by a good tackle, but he's down injured. And he looks like he may be in a fair amount of discomfort because he put his arm up straight away and clutched his right leg. Now there are 1 or 2 disagreements off the ball involving Bashturk as well.
I don't think it'll be Bashturk. I think the fella's done seriously, but I think it was a straightforward challenge.
But Kleiner was the player that came forward and propelled the ball against the bar.
I think it got deflected onto the bar. I think it came off a Newcastle back. But here's the challenge, and it's Bernard. I don't think Bernard did anything wrong at all. I think Bernard went for the ball, tried to ride the challenge.
Well, Bernard has left the scene of what was perceived as the crime by Leverkusen. This is a decent angle. Did he go over the top of the ball?
Well, I don't think his foot was too high there. But I think that he's definitely caught his, I would suggest he's caught his right leg.
He's developed into a fairly tigerish defender. He's benefited from a good run of games in the team as well. He made a good career choice last summer, it seems, because he was very keen to join West Ham, and then...
Well, I think that was a devious agent trying to be clever. I remember the situation. They made him a decent offer here. We hope, of course, that that's not too serious, but well, it didn't look good, because often you see when a player raises his arm straight away, it's suggesting that he knows it's serious. But of course, he could have stunned him.
Christoph Preuss is off the field for the time being, the 21-year-old right back. And here's Solano. 1 or 2 tackles beginning to fly in from Leverkusen. Just got the sense they're slightly annoyed by a couple of the challenges. I think Bramble on Badaric got them riled, and now Bernard on Preuss has raised the stakes still further. And we have now got a yellow card, the first of the evening, for Badaric.
Well, I think Badaric set the tone, didn't he, when he came over and did his amateur dramatics. And now he's definitely late on Bernard, no question.
It's his second bad tackle on Bernard in the space of 3 or 4 minutes. Here's Robert as we try and get back to the football. Robert. Preuss is still off the pitch. Leverkusen still numerically disadvantaged. And this is Andy Griffin for Newcastle. And Lamano Luar is going to come on very shortly as we see confirmation of the yellow card for Badaric. And here is a rarity. Alan Shearer being substituted. Doesn't happen often. Hands on the captain's armband. The first European hat-trick of his career. And it should be enough to secure a very important victory for Newcastle United. Luar will play the final 10 minutes.
And we're pleased to say also that the German right-back Pross is back onto the field, jogging on. Hopefully that will absolve Bernard, and Bernard very sportingly there made a gesture to him as semi-apologetic, but he did go for the ball, and Pross acknowledged it, which I think is tremendous.
Let's hope things will calm down a little now. Just a semblance of a suggestion that things might have gone beyond the referee's control for a moment. But here's Babic, and he's away from Griffin. And Griffin's still in hot pursuit, and Solano is the extra player for Newcastle.
He's added a bit, Babic, hasn't he, going forward?
Speed, hustled out of it. Bashtor. Babic. Caldwell didn't clear, this is França. Shimak. Too many shimmies from Shimak. And now Luar. Ideal situation for him to come on with just 10 minutes to play, and Hugo Viana is going to follow him onto the pitch as well. And Brian Kerr is going to make way. Hugo Viana, who's not played for 3 months, has had a shoulder operation, and there's a very warm reception for Brian Kerr. First experience of the Champions League tonight, and he's not looked out of place.
No, he's done very well. It'll be a good psychological pointer to him that he's been part of a very good victory in the Champions League.
There's always just that question mark in your mind where Newcastle are concerned, even at 3-1 up with 8 minutes to play. Kleiner's deflected header having Cannon back off the crossbar.
But overall, I don't think there's too much suggestion that the centre-backs, where there was a question mark before the game, they hadn't played together and they were young, and you know, the all sorts of nervous queries. But Caldwell and Bramble have done perfectly all right together tonight. On a couple of occasions they may have been a bit lax, but it's very hard for two young centre-backs. You know, it's sometimes nice to have an old one teaching a young one. Fascinating to see, for example, the other night Roy Keane playing as a centre-back. Experience with youth is a very good combination at centre-back.
Well, Jonathan Woodgate is available and likely to be involved in some way when Chelsea come visiting here in the Premiership on Saturday. So Bobby Robson was keen to stress that Hughes and O'Brien will return to the starting lineup on Saturday. Nice to have such selection problems. He does now say that this is the best squad of players he's ever had. Makes the point that he had a very good 14 at Ipswich, but didn't have 20, which is what he's got now.
Well, most of them, like this young man, expensive acquisition, Viana, they're young.
The policy now is buy British here, isn't it? I know Viana is Portuguese, but Newcastle have expressed recent interest in the two very good young players at Ipswich, Darren Ambrose and Darren Bent.
Well, if you get plenty of young players, then there's a great chance of succeeding. They're not all going to come through together, but it will be the heart of a future team. And what Bobby Robson has done here, he's managed what I call unselfishly. He hasn't managed for today. He's managed partly for today, but he's had an eye on tomorrow for the good of the club, because he knows probably in 3, 4, 5 years he's not going to be the manager, but he's given them a real foundation here. You know, a lot of people would like to manage this club at the moment because they have some young talent, and it goes through into their reserves, and it goes through into young forwards like Chopra and the boy I can't pronounce that was at Darlington on loan. You can pronounce him. But he's very good.
Offion.
Correct.
Scored a goal or two in the FA Cup on loan at Darlington earlier this season.
And of course they've got a lot of players out on loan, getting experience.
Here's Solano. Lua. Goodness knows what will happen next. Amiobi. Did well to win it back. Viana.
Party time.
Lua. Fancy a somersault before the end of the game, don't you?
Yeah, you just said what he was going to do next, and I said maybe a somersault, but unpredictable box of tricks. There's Viana with his little flick, and to be fair, it was a good effort across the face of the goal.
Still 0-0 in the other group game between Inter and Barcelona. Newcastle next to go to the San Siro in just under a fortnight, and they finish here against Barcelona in 3 weeks' time. Barcelona again.
That's a very good result, really, for Barcelona, because with the
still
changes,
playing, by the way, David.
Yes, if they get that result, it's a good result because they were very much better than the Italians last week and had a very fine performance. And I just thought they might step off the gas tonight.
Viana. Rumbled out of it by Pashtur, who's outspoken before the game, saying that the Bundesliga is far better than the Premiership. Grave comments not borne out by what we've seen tonight. Leverkusen are from the nether regions of the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich went out at the first stage of the Champions League. Here's Pashtur. And now Badaric. Bramble was rattling in at him.
Yeah, when he tackles, Bramble, and to Babaric's credit, it didn't fall about then.
Robert offside. Shola Amiobi.
Good decision. Close, but still the linesman was right.
Shimak. First goal, as always, so important tonight. Someone was telling me at training yesterday that Newcastle are so good when they do score first in a game. The last 51 times that they've scored first in a match, they've not lost. They've gone on to win 42 of them and drawn 8 before tonight. I'm assuming that they're going to avoid defeat tonight.
It's an interesting statistic, John. You may be interested to know that probably 80% of teams that score first in the highest league don't lose the game. They may draw the game, and they may occasionally get beat, but on 80% of the occasions they get something.
Conversely, Newcastle came from behind 10 times to win last season and have done it 5 times this season.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Babic. Here's Viana. He's been a little frustrated at his lack of opportunities, latterly because of his own injury.
I think he needs a strong player with him, of course, in midfield. Viana. I don't see them playing Viana and Robert as well. At the moment, you see Robert's come off the touchline. He's wandering. They've lost that little bit of shape, a little bit of discipline. It's excusable in the context of the night and the performance and the excellent start they had in the first half.
And we shouldn't forget as well to mark the passing of Bayer Leverkusen, last season's beaten finalists from the competition. They accepted that they were going out before they played Newcastle last week, when they'd only played 2 of their 6 group matches, but mathematically they are now very definitely on the way out of the competition.
I suppose it's the argument that adds, it adds credence to the argument about more knockout games.
França, the back heel for Pashtur. No nonsense from Bernard.
I think he's defended well. I think he's made some good tackles.
Badaric is having a word in his ear.
Good interception.
Badaric is developing into the rogue character for the Newcastle supporters. But he is dangerous in the air, and that is Badaric that nearly got a meaningful touch. in vintage Newcastle in the second half. Babic, Budaric.
Well, 3 minutes of additional time, and Newcastle drifting towards the close. Just think Robert hasn't helped them by going and playing what I can only assume is his own game. I'm sure that Bobby Robson didn't want him to crowd the middle. He's come right inside now and giving less chance for Luar and Amiobi to get a delivery of ball, and they've got no one really out on the left-hand side. I think it's typical of Robert, really. He's looking for a little bit of glory. He's looking for a more central position where he might get a strike at goal. But his best work is done, I think, from the wide position.
The speed, referee's given the foul on Shimak. Wave of apology from the Portuguese Viana.
Cuts rather a sad figure, I think, that's at Shimak. One or two challenges he's bottled, for want of a better word.
And his hair looks bottled as well, David.
Yeah, and you marked about the hairband. I think you were suggesting it was a lady's hairband, weren't you?
You're putting words into my mouth now. He was Bundesliga Second Division Player of the Year last season.
Yeah, but he hasn't played a tough game tonight, let's put it like that. On the fringe.
No sign of a fringe. So Newcastle really playing out time towards what in the end will go down as a pretty comprehensive Champions League win. Inter Milan to come. Barcelona at home. All sorts of permutations in Group A. And things will only really start to become clear after Newcastle's trip to Italy. Kleiner. But we have seen a European hat-trick for Alan Shearer, only the fourth in the history of the club.
Strange, really, how you make 2 or 3 substitutions and you lose that shape and you lose that impetus, because players come on with a 3-goal cushion and they want to make an impression themselves instead of playing more as a team play, which certainly Newcastle were for 3/4 of this game. A good team play.
30 seconds to go. Robert to Bernard. Is there a 4th goal in Newcastle? Not from Bernard's slalom run. Babic has found Shimak, despite the lunge of the fullback Andy Griffin, who's now working his socks off to get back behind the ball. Klaus Bolarsson, the referee, has had 3 looks at his watch. We've had the 3 extra minutes. It's another very good night for Newcastle United. Another step on the European ladder. They're in with a real shout at the quarter-finals thanks to Alan Shearer's first half hat-trick. Next it's Milan, then Barcelona here. Nothing's ever straightforward with Newcastle. Nothing's ever dull. It's Newcastle 3, Bayer Leverkusen 1.
So
We needed a victory to keep our hopes up of staying in the competition. It was a good night for us. We'd done the damage really in the first half, and it was a good performance.
Surprisingly, your first goal in open play in the Champions League.
I thought you were going to ask me that. Yeah, it's surprising, but hey, as long as we get the points and can hopefully get through into the next round, that's what matters.
A team performance, though. You kept everyone going. I saw you a couple of times just talking to the young guys at the back, just telling them to keep close together.
Well, that's mine and Gary Speed's job. We're the experienced ones, so they keep telling us. So we have to play our part.
Now, where does this leave you now? Coming from behind again?
Yeah, we've. At first, we give ourselves a mountain to climb. We give ourselves another one in this at this stage, but we've come back with 2 victories. Who knows? We'll certainly won't give it up. That's for sure.
Newcastle now have to go to Inter Milan, finish up with Barcelona at home, and Barcelona have dropped their first points. They'd won 11 in a row up to now in a goalless draw.